This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, I think that we have all of our council people here for this evening. Thank you everyone for joining us tonight on our regularly scheduled public meeting. Before we get started with council business, we are going to have a public hearing on the CDBG application. So at this time, I'd like to turn the mic over to Chris Stetler, and she'll open a hearing on our home program application.
Thank you. This may seem like we just did this because we did a public hearing a month or so ago for a home application. This is a separate application for the Community Development Block Grant Program for the year 2021. It's the first of two public hearings for the application. CDBG funds are federal funds that the borough receives through the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development. The money is designed to assist low and moderate income areas in communities and individuals with low and moderate incomes. Conshohocken does not have any areas or any census block groups that are 51% low moderate income, so our efforts have to be focused on individuals who have low and moderate income, or if we have a project that we want to do around a street or so, we have to do a survey to determine the income level of that area. Funds have to be used for those areas, and the eligible uses of CDBG funds are for water and sewer line replacement or improvement, construction of affordable housing or rehabilitation of housing, construction or reconstruction of public or community facilities, public services that are new and increase what services are available. It can't just be used to support a service that's already there that does not increase in its use. And the removal of architectural barriers, economic development, and for administration and operation of the program. For 2021, Conshohocken is an entitlement community, which means that there is a formula that was established by the state legislature which determines what certain communities are eligible for, provided they submit an appropriate application. Conshohocken is eligible for $134,798. We are asking for tonight for the public's comments on what needs there are in the community, how the 2021 money should be spent, and you're also free to comment on the past uses of the CDBG funds. For the past several years, Conshohocken has focused primarily on using these funds for housing rehabilitation, although we do have some curb ramp installations, which makes the community more accessible for older adults, for people with disabilities, for mothers with young children who need to get places in town. Generally, Conshohocken CDBG program does not displace any residents. We don't have projects that destroy affordable housing to replace it with something else. If that were the case, the borough would be responsible for replacing any affordable housing that was demolished for a CDBG funded project. So I'd like to ask anyone who's there, if you have questions or comments, or you want to address how CDBG funds are spent, how they have been spent, how you think they should be spent, I would be happy to try and answer any questions you have. Okay. I'm assuming that you're all fairly familiar with the program. If you think of something later on or tomorrow or whenever, we will accept written comments on these issues for the next 10 days. And you can send them to me at the Borough Administration Office. That's Chris Stetler at 400 Fayette Street, Suite 200. My email is cstetler@conshohockenpa.gov. And the phone number I can be reached at is 610-828-1092. We will accept written comments. There is a second public hearing, which is required to be held regarding the application. The second public hearing is scheduled for September 15th, 2021 at 7 o'clock. It will be before the council meeting. And that meeting will be to explain how funds have been decided to be used. The council will will ask to consider a resolution authorizing the submission of the application in October, and applications are due to the state by October 28th, 2021. I do have information here on the Housing Rehabilitation Program. If anyone has any comments or questions about how that operates, I'd be happy to try and answer them right now. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Chris. All
My
right,
pleasure.
that will conclude the public hearing on the CDBG application. At this time, I'd like to call to order our council meeting. Stephanie, will you do roll call for us tonight, please?
Yes, of course. Councilmember Totino will note for the record that she is absent. Councilmember Griffin.
Here.
Councilmember Kingsley.
Present.
Councilmember Barton.
Here.
Councilmember Stokely.
Here.
Vice President Sokolowski.
Here.
President Leonard will note for the record that she is absent, and Mayor Aronson. I see
Here.
the mayor. I don't hear him. There we go. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Councilmember Barton, would you mind doing prayer before council, please?
Thank you. O Divine Master, in deep humility, we place ourselves, our thoughts, and our plans in thy hands. We beg thee to fill our minds and our wills with the gifts of wisdom, understanding, counsel, fortitude, knowledge, and piety. Help us not to think of self or personal desires, but rather consider the responsibilities laid upon us. Help us to promote, as far as possible, the welfare of our people and to treat them with impartiality and justice. Grant us the power to set a good example in thought, word, and deed, so that thy blessings will be showered upon us and the people we represent. Amen.
Okay. And at this time, I'd like to do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Liberty.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you all for joining us for our regularly scheduled public voting session. At this time, we'll ask that you please mute all the audio lines. No public comments will be permitted during the course of the meeting until the designated comment section located on the agenda. You'll be notified during the meeting when public comments are permitted. You may also submit your written comments via email to brogers@conshahockenpa.gov. That's brogers@conshahockenpa.gov. A member of the Borough Administration will read your public comment that are submitted in this manner. For all comments, please remember to include your name and address for the record, and thank you in advance for your cooperation during this remote meeting. Next item on the agenda is presentations. It does not look like we have any specific presentations for this evening. Is that correct, Ms. Checo?
That is correct.
Okay, so we'll move right into the next item on the agenda, which is land use matters, public hearings, and ordinances. The first item under that topic is consider approving Resolution 2116, which is approving preliminary and final land development for 400 West Elm Street. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Mike Peters to give us a little bit more background information.
Thank you very much. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, very good. This is the application for 400 West Elm Street. You have seen this property several times, including most recently a presentation that was given to you during your work session 2 weeks ago. This property is proposed for 348 dwelling units and 427 parking spaces. We have worked through a proposed resolution that was circulated to you for review. Just to remind you, there are two other approvals that have already been granted. One is conditional use approval to permit the multifamily use, and two are certain variances that were granted by your zoning hearing board with respect to building bulk and also development within the floodplain conservation district. The resolution that's prepared for you this evening has several conditions. It grants certain waivers as follows. First, that the applicant would be granted a waiver, a partial waiver from 22-306.A1 to not show all existing and proposed features within 100 feet of the property. That's subject to the applicant providing such information as deemed necessary by your borough engineer, Karen. Number two, the applicant is granted a waiver from SADO section 22-308.A and SADO section 22-308.C to permit the simultaneous submission, review, and approval of preliminary and final land development. Number three, the applicant would be granted a waiver from SADO section 22-404.2.B to permit a driveway width exceeding 25 feet. Number four, the applicant would be granted a waiver from SADO section 404.2.C to permit a driveway to be located closer than 40 feet from the intersection of West Elm and Corson Street. Number five, the applicant would be granted a waiver from SADO section 22-404.3.F per N7 to permit parking spaces of less than the minimum required size as shown on the plan. Number six, the applicant is granted a waiver from SADO section 22-405.1.C to permit sidewalk of less than 15 feet in width as shown on the plan, with the condition that it not go under 5 feet, including the top of the curb along the private driveway. Number seven, the applicant would be granted a waiver from 22-405.1.D to permit a grass verge of less than 4 feet from the curb line, again as shown on the plan. Number eight, the applicant would be granted a waiver from SADO section 22-405.2 to permit flush curbing as shown on the plan, subject to the requirement that bollards be installed along the limits of the flush curbing. Number nine, the applicant would be granted a waiver from SADO section 409.2 to permit grading within 3 feet of the property line. The applicant would be required to comply with all conditions of resolution 06 of 2018. That's a resolution that you granted for previous office use of the project, except of course to the extent that it's modified in this new resolution and by the fact that this new resolution is for residential use. Number 11, the applicant shall comply with the conditions and terms of the conditional use decision. 12, same thing with respect to the zoning hearing board decision. 13, the applicant shall pay a fee in lieu of park and recreation facilities or land in the amount of $1,000 per unit for a total of $348,000, assuming 348 units. The applicant shall pay a fee of $102,000 in lieu of the public amenity comfort station approved by a prior resolution number 2015-12. The applicant shall provide 20 parking spaces as shown on the plan and shall execute such easements and access agreements as are necessary to ensure the public's access to those spaces. Number 16, the applicant has agreed to and shall pay a traffic impact fee in the amount of $500,000, which is subject to a credit that will be approved by the borough for design work that was funded by the applicant for traffic improvements at the intersection of Fayette and West Elm Street. 17, the applicant shall provide an ADA accessible route approved by the borough from West Elm down to the trail system for the site, and the applicant shall maintain the existing trail along the northeastern property line and obtain all necessary approvals and permissions to improve the existing footbridge over Plymouth Creek. That the design of that footbridge would ultimately be subject to the satisfaction and approval of Borough Council. Number 18, that the applicant shall provide areas consistent with section 27-1608 of the Borough zoning ordinance to permit a 50-foot height bonus to take the height up to 135 feet. In the alternative, as the height bonus public amenities are finalized, if it's determined that the borough desires a fee in lieu instead, the applicant shall pay a fee in lieu in the amount of the actual cost of the public amenities to ultimately be approved by the Borough Council. With respect to the public amenity within Plymouth Township, the applicant shall obtain all necessary approvals from Plymouth Township. And we do understand that the applicant is already in communications with them. And the applicant shall be solely responsible for operation and maintenance of the public amenity areas and shall demonstrate adequate agreements for maintenance and operation of those areas to the satisfaction of the Borough Solicitor. Number 19, the applicant shall provide public easements and shall demonstrate adequate agreements for maintenance and operation of the trail system proposed. 20, the applicant shall obtain the approval of the Borough for the location and design of the Schuylkill River Trail and the cross-country trail, including how those two trails connect to each other. Number 21, the applicant shall revise the plan to comply with the review letters identified in the resolution from your borough engineer, zoning officer, traffic engineer, fire marshal, and the Montgomery County Planning Commission to the extent required by the borough. 22 and 23, the applicant shall execute stormwater operations and maintenance agreements and land development agreements subject to my approval. 24, the applicant shall obtain all necessary permits. 25, the applicant shall obtain any and all third-party outside agencies, permits and approvals that have jurisdiction over the site. 26, the applicant shall pay any outstanding invoices with the borough. And 27, the applicant shall abide by the conditions of the resolution. So that's a lot, but it is a big project and it's a property that has been around for some time. So I'm happy to answer any questions, or at this time, it would be appropriate for a motion if you're so inclined to approve the resolution. And then I do have a second motion that you would need to make, which I'll talk about after you consider the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Peters. Does council have any additional questions? With no questions, I will ask for a motion to approve Resolution 2021-16, approving preliminary and final land development for 400 West Elm Street.
Barton, I'll make that motion.
Griffin, I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The ayes carry. Motion approved.
Thank you very much. The second item is the aforementioned height bonus. It is a separate section of your zoning ordinance, so it's not directly controlled by your subdivision and land development ordinance. So we do a second notice of approval if you're so inclined. That would be simply a letter from my office notifying the applicant, if you grant the height bonus, that a height bonus has been granted from section 1608.8 of the Conshohocken Borough zoning ordinance to grant a 50-foot height bonus for a maximum building height of 135 feet. And that height bonus would be conditioned as follows. The applicant would comply with the terms and conditions of the land development resolution that we just reviewed. The applicant shall offer that portion of the property located in Plymouth Township for dedication to the borough. That dedication lasts for a period of 2 years, and if not taken up, it shall expire. The applicant shall provide public amenities consistent with section 27-1608.8 of the Conshohocken Borough zoning ordinance. And same thing, if as the amenities are finalized, it's determined that a fee in lieu is more appropriate, the applicant shall pay a fee in lieu for the actual cost of the proposed improvements. And all those items are to be addressed and finalized in the land development agreement, ultimately to be recorded for the project. And finally, that fee in lieu does not excuse the requirement to offer the portion of property in Plymouth Township for dedication to the borough. So if you're inclined, it would be a motion to approve the height bonus subject to those 5 conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Peters. Council, any questions related to the height bonus? If I hear no questions, so I'll be looking for a motion to grant a height bonus of 50 feet pursuant to section 1608.8 of the Conshohocken Borough zoning ordinance to permit the residential building as described in resolution 2021-16 with a maximum building height of 135 feet. If so inclined, may I have a motion?
I'll make that motion, Griffin.
I'll second it.
I'll second it, Stokely.
Oh, Bob can
Okay,
have it.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the table. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes carry, motion approved.
Thank you to
Okay.
the applicant and their attorney. I see they're on the call. Thank you for attending.
I'd like to
Thank
thank counsel, Lou Colagreco, on behalf of the applicant. I'd like to thank counsel for the time and effort put into this application. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, moving to the next item on the agenda. Consider approving Resolution 2021-17, approving preliminary and final minor subdivision and land development for 333 West 7th Avenue. Mr. Peters, could you provide us some additional information?
I can, thank you. This project involves 2 lots. Those lots would contain an 860 square foot footprint, single family semi-detached dwelling each, with a 240 square foot rear deck and a 140 square foot front porch. Parking is to occur at the rear. And again, we have prepared for your review and consideration a resolution with certain conditions should you be inclined to grant that land development approval. Those conditions are as follows. Number 1, the applicant would be granted a partial waiver from the requirements of SADO section 22-402.1.a to permit sidewalk to stop approximately 5 feet short of the northwestern property line. If you go out and look at the site, there is an existing wall in that area on the neighboring property, and to avoid disturbing that wall, the waiver has been requested and recommended. Number 2, the applicant would be granted the requested waiver from the requirements of section 22-409.2 to permit grading within 3 feet of the property line. Number 3, the applicant would be granted a partial waiver from the requirements of SADO section 22-421.4 to permit the planting of street trees within the West 7th Avenue right-of-way, subject to the requirement that the property owner maintain those street trees. Number 4, applicant would be granted a partial waiver from the requirements of SADO section 22-804 to permit a payment of a fee in lieu of park and rec facilities in the amount of $8,000. Number 5, the applicant shall comply with your borough engineer's review letter dated June 30th, 2021, and as amended. Number 6, the applicant shall comply with all comments in the review letter dated June 30th of your borough zoning officer. Number 7, the applicant shall comply with the review letter dated June 16th, 2021 of the Montgomery County Planning Commission as required by the borough. Number 8, the applicant shall obtain the approval of the borough fire marshal for the proposed emergency access to and through the site. Number 9 and 10, the applicant shall execute stormwater and land development and escrow agreements subject to my review. Number 11, the applicant shall satisfy all outstanding invoices with the borough. Number 12, there are existing structures to be removed, so the applicant shall expeditiously remove those existing features and post such escrows and enter into such agreements as shall be required by the borough for their removal. And number 13, the applicant shall abide by all terms and conditions of the resolution. Those are the conditions as proposed. It is much shorter than the last one, so that's easier, but any questions, please let me know.
I only have one. The alleyway behind, is that going to be continued and repaved to get to those?
Anita, I'm sorry. Can you say that again? I wasn't. You cut out there for a second.
There is an alleyway behind the houses. Is that to be repaved and continued to get to these houses? In other words,
Is the applicant,
Yes,
or
Mr.
Karen, maybe you know, I don't have a specific answer to that.
Mike, Joe Estock is on the call. Mr. Estock, can you answer that question for Councilmember Barton?
Yes, actually the alley does exist and it is paved. So it's open for vehicular traffic and it is continuous. So you could, you could drive from Wood Street down the alley and exit out the other end near the new apartment buildings.
I couldn't remember how far back it went. Sorry.
Yeah, that one does go all the way through.
Okay.
Yep,
And you're just putting pads in, right? No garages?
True.
Okay.
Any additional questions from council? I hear no additional questions. So at this time, I'd like to have a motion to approve resolution 2021-17, approving preliminary, final, minor subdivision and land development for 333 West 7th Avenue.
I'll make that motion, Barton.
I'll second Kingsley.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. And lastly, in this section, we have consider adopting ordinance 0621, 2021, repealing ordinance 02, 2021, conveying the sewer authority to the Borough of Conshohocken. Mr. Peters, would you like to give us some additional information on this one?
Sure. So as council knows, you went through a lengthy process analyzing your sewer authority asset. At that time, you decided not to move forward with the sale of the sewer authority and instead to enter into a back and forth and dialogue with the sewer authority for purposes of entering into an ultimate memorandum of understanding to formalize the relationship between the two entities. That conversation continues. As part of that, and also to clean up one outstanding issue with respect to that consideration, you at that time had adopted an ordinance, as you were required to start the process of looking into a potential sale. Now that you are working with the sewer authority and are making headway with the memorandum of understanding to repeal that ordinance, you need to do so by a new ordinance. So this ordinance would direct that prior ordinance, which set things up for the sale, would be repealed. It's a very, as you saw, the ordinance is very straightforward because it simply repeals that prior ordinance in its entirety.
Mr. Peters, just to clarify, at any point, council could reinstate the ordinance which conveys sewer authority to the Borough of Conshohocken in the future. Is that correct?
They can, yes. So it's the same analysis that went into doing it initially would carry forward. So at any time, should council choose to reevaluate the asset, yes, they could simply readopt the same ordinance that was adopted previously.
Thank you, Mr. Peters.
Thank
Welcome.
you. Any other questions from council?
No.
Okay, hearing no questions, I'd like a motion to adopt ordinance 06, 2021, repealing ordinance 02, 2021, conveying the sewer authority to the Borough of Conshohocken.
I'll make that motion, Griffin.
I'll second it, Barton.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The ayes carry. Motion carries. Okay, we will be moving on to the consent agenda at this time. First item on the consent agenda this evening is to approve and adopt the July 21st regular meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion. Griffin.
I'll second
I'll second.
Kingsley.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Yeah.
Okay, motion to approve and adopt the July 21st regular meeting minutes is carries. Second item is to approve the July ending treasurer's report and accounts payable. Ms. Checo?
Yes, the accounts payable for the month of July is in the amount of $576,289.06. If inclined, we would need a motion to approve the treasurer's report and accounts payable in that amount.
Thank you, Ms. Checo. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion to approve. Griffin.
I'll second it, Stokely.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Motion carries. All right, the next item on our agenda is unfinished business. So tonight we are considering authorizing the borough traffic engineer to complete a road diet feasibility study. Anyone have any questions about that?
How long will it take?
Mr. Keaveney is on the line, but Councilmember Barton, to clarify, it's approximately 8 weeks,
Okay.
barring any, unforeseen circumstances.
Right. Thank you.
Any additional questions on the road feasibility study? Okay, with no additional questions, I will ask for a motion to authorize the Borough Traffic Engineer to complete the road diet feasibility study per the proposal that we received dated July 29th, 2021. May I have a motion?
I'll make that motion. Barton?
I'll second. Kingsley.
I have a motion and a second on the table. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is new business, and at this time I would turn the conversation over to Ms. Checco.
Thank you, Vice President Sokolowski. The first item is to designate a Section 504 officer. You heard from Chris Stetler earlier this evening. As a recipient of federal funds, we have to designate a Section 504 officer, which ensures that our programs and facilities are accessible to and usable by people with disabilities. If inclined, it would be a motion to approve Resolution 2021-18, designating Chris Stetler as the Section 504 officer.
Council's inclined. May I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll make that motion.
Second, Griffin.
I'll second it, Stokely.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
No.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you.
Along the same lines, Resolution 2021-19 is affirming the borough's commitment to fair housing for all residents of the borough of Conshohocken. Again, this is a stipulation to submit for the federal funds. And in order to undertake the actions, we have to annually reinstate our support of fair housing. So if inclined, it would be a motion to approve Resolution 2021-19, affirming the borough's commitment to fair housing for all residents.
I'll make that motion. Kingsley.
And I'll second it, Mr. Griffin.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
The next item is the home application resolution. So we are submitting for another round of home federal funds that would be in the amount of $350,000. Again, this is managed by Ms. Stetler. In order to do so, we have to approve Resolution 2021-20, which authorizes the submission of the home program application.
Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion, Stokely.
I'll second it.
So we have a motion and a second by Barton. All in
Correct.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
The last item is a supplemental appropriation request by Borough Administration for the 2021 budget. We have a situation down at the Public Services Garage where our lift for our mechanic is broken. So right now, any work that has to be done on vehicles has to be sent out. We can't do it in-house. So what we are looking for is approval to utilize capital reserves through a supplemental appropriation to the 2021 budget in the amount of $24,590.01.
Okay. Council, do I have a motion to approve supplemental appropriation?
I'll make that motion. Barton?
I'll second.
it.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Okay, any additional new business, Ms. Checo?
I do not have any new business for tonight. Thank you,
Great.
Vice President Sokolowski.
Thank you. All right, at this time, we can accept public comment. Brittany, do you have any public comments submitted?
No, we did not receive any written public comment.
Okay, great. How about in the audience today? Does anyone have any public comment?
Yes, I have something to say. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, Anna, could you just tell us who you are and where you live for the record?
Sure. Yep, Anna DeSantis, 200 West Elm Street, Conshohocken. I don't know if there's been any discussion on when you guys are going to go back to the in-person council meetings, but I wanted to make a suggestion that you, if you do decide to go back to in-person, that you keep doing like an online, I don't know if you were doing it before, but I would like the option to either come in or come online. And if you could go back to like more of a hybrid setup where people can still log in remotely and take part in the meeting or submit comments and things like that while you're still doing it in person. So I don't know if there's been any discussion of it, but I just wanted to throw it out there in case that subject has come up, or if anybody would be interested in talking about it, because I would like to make that suggestion. And that's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we're looking into all options, especially in the situation with the variant at this point. So I think we're in discussions with administration and our emergency management and public safety folks. So I don't think we're ready to talk about it tonight. Would that be a correct statement, Ms. Checo?
No, that is correct. We are evaluating the current situation as it relates to the variant, and we are, of course, always mindful of the health, safety, and welfare of the community and the administration and our council members. As soon as we feel it is the right time to go back to in-person, then we will make sure that that is advertised and clearly posted for the public. But right now we are virtual.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any additional public comment? I'm hearing no additional public comment. So at this time, I'd like to ask Mayor Aronson, do you have any comments you would like to make tonight?
Thank you, Vice President Sokolowski. We had last Sunday, Conshohocken Borough was invited to Conshohocken Night at the Reading Phils. As you can see, it was an absolute blast. And I love seeing our residents and even some council people take over First Energy Stadium in Reading. The event was so successful that their media relations manager told me that she wants to make this a yearly event moving forward. So hopefully this becomes a new Conshohocken tradition every summer. We also had the VFW was just repainted by local artist Kim Robbins, and it's beautiful. I hope everyone has been able to take a look at it. VFW members, now that the painting is complete, have asked that residents join them to put handprints on the walls of the posts. For anyone who missed the event, there will be a second chance to get your handprint on the VFW tomorrow night from 5 to 7 p.m. Paint is provided and pets are welcome, and they can even put their little paws on the wall if they would like. Sarah and I are also putting on a Conchi Strong bingo in person and outside the VFW. That will be next Thursday, the 26th. We'll be highlighting local businesses and giving out gift cards to winners to local businesses, and also have business owners call out some of our rounds. This is part of a continuing series of Conchi Strong events that I hope will help our residents, businesses, and nonprofits come together as we make our way through COVID-19. And then finally, a big thank you to our borough administration for a wonderful summer concert series. They were a big hit, and I personally love that we have concerts at Sutcliffe and Marywood Park. I'm already looking forward to next summer's lineup. And that's it from me.
Thank you. Mr. Stokely, do you have any?
No, I have
for
nothing
us?
tonight. Thank you.
Sure. Ms. Barton?
I have to say, yes, Sunday was a great time at the ballpark. It was a lot of fun. We watched a lot of kids having a good time. So, yeah, I definitely will look forward to going again next year. And as far as the hand painting on the wall, be prepared to have it stain your hands. It comes off in a couple of hours, but it was fun. And so glad that so many came out to enjoy this beautiful mural that's on the VFW.
Great,
That's
thank you. Mr. Griffin, do you have anything tonight?
No, I have nothing tonight.
Thank you. Ms. Kingsley, thank you for joining our first meeting tonight. Do you have anything for tonight?
Nothing, thank you very much. I am happy to be here, though.
Awesome. We're happy to have you.
We're glad to have you.
Thank you.
All right. I do have something that I would like to read off for this evening. So we're all aware that this week President Biden authorized the deployment of troops to Afghanistan to ensure an orderly and safe evacuation of U.S. personnel as well as Afghans who helped American troops. At this time, I'd like to take the opportunity to acknowledge a member of our Borough family who is currently stationed in Afghanistan carrying out this emergency security mission. On behalf of the entire Borough of Conshohocken, may you be safe and secure in your deployment and return home safely. Know that our thoughts and our prayers are with you and your family, and we thank you for your heroic actions.
Thank you.
And with that, yeah, and with that, we can call the meeting adjourned for this evening.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Thank you, guys. Good week.